I hate ads. Now, before I get everyone turning into feral dogs in the comments, a little preface. I'm not completely against advertising. It is essential for the media we consume to keep running in the modern day. If it weren't for ads, we wouldn't have YouTube, telly, film, or radio, as it gets quite difficult to run things if you have no money. There are plenty of people who do ads well. For example, the YouTuber Internet Comment Etiquette does funny skits to make the ads more entertaining and more palatable to watch. And there are plenty of examples of companies coming up with creative or entertaining ads throughout the years, such as this Heineken ad that my dad put me onto.
The water in Mallorca doesn't taste like what it ought to.
No. The water in Majorca don't taste like what it ought to.
The water in Mallorca doesn't taste quite how it should.
Majorca!
Mallorca?
Majorca!
Mallorca?
Hi, Dale, any danger of some refreshment in here?
Here you are. Get your laughing gear in there.
Oh, golly. The water in Majorca
What's that?
don't taste like what it oughta. Oh, gosh. The water in Majorca don't taste like what it oughta.
She's cracking. She's only corrected.
You're absolutely wrong.
This is all to highlight that I'm not completely against ads as a whole. They are essential to keep our media running and can be entertaining if done well. And if you truly want to live out your days in an ad-free utopia, just get an ad blocker or set your VPN location to Cuba. Yes, this actually works as well. Now, before I start complaining, I'm going to go through a brief history of ads, specifically ads in media, as I don't really want to be talking about ancient Mesopotamia, because that's not exactly relevant, is it? As you might expect, TV ads were initially started by the Americans. God bless America! The first of which was aired on the 1st of July 1941, and thankfully it was only 10 seconds. Oh, how times have changed. And gradually, over the years, such is the nature with constant growth, ad breaks became longer and longer. In the 50s they were maybe a minute to 3 minutes long, 60s they were 2 to 3 minutes, 70s 3 to 4, and then 90s to 2000s 4 to 6, and today Google is telling me that it's an average of 4 to 7 minutes. Although the UK wasn't exactly lumped in with these American ads, as we had a thing called the BBC, and this was funded by a TV licence. Now, before we get any Yankee pricks going, "Oh, I'm British, cup of tea innit, I've got bad teeth. Oh, mate, you don't have a TV licence, you're coming with me, mate."
Yes, boss, how are you?
What's his first name?
His first name is, Baldy over there. What's it like to have no hair? Is it hot or is it cold? I don't know, because I'm not old.
At the time, this TV licence was actually a pretty good deal, because the BBC was actually pretty fucking good. And there are only like 4 channels, so you get all sorts of great content with no ads for like quite a reasonable price. Although unfortunately TV licences still exist today, which is a little bit retarded considering most telly has ads nowadays. You win, Americans. Although despite hearing all sorts of ghost stories from being in uni about TV men booting down your door, no one actually pays attention. Although no one really watches TV anymore, so I'm going to focus more on streaming services than anything else. Starting with our primary focus, and the reason I made this video, YouTube. Back in the day, YouTube used to be way better than TV in terms of the amount of ads that you'd see. Initially, YouTube didn't have any ads, but no one really watched YouTube back then. So when I, and probably most people, started watching YouTube, the ads were only about 5 seconds before the actual video itself. Now, if we compare this to TV ads at the time, it does seem like YouTube was quite a bit better. In the UK at least, ads were kept moderate, at a maximum of 7 minutes per hour, with the US being almost double that at 12 to 15. Now, if you're as old as I am, you might be able to remember that these were quite long, although they were placed at deliberate times not to fuck shit up. And there also weren't no such thing as ad blocker back then, nor no skip button, so there weren't really much you could do about it. However, it acted like some natural sort of break. As it was on the telly, you could leave, go make a cuppa, go get some bickies, and maybe run shop if you really needed. Although that's not how it works these days. It's not the bloody migrants that's wrong with this country, it's the fucking ads on YouTube. I'll be watching some fucking show, it'll have reached the climax, most tense moment of the whole film, and I'll fucking get some ad right in the middle of it, fucking ruining the whole fucking thing. Although it never used to be like this. Let me give you a brief rundown on how it's changed over the years. So, YouTube launches in 2005, but it wasn't until 2007 when the first ads began. These were initially just small banners and overlays on the screen, not very intrusive and not actually that much of a problem. However, in May 2007 the real pre-roll ads came about, and fuck me, people were not happy. Initially they stuck with these longer ads because YouTube was still growing. However, they quickly realised that people were abandoning videos and getting really pissed off with the ads, rather than actually engaging with them, which advertisers didn't exactly like. And so Google saw long unskippable ads as more of a growth limiter. And so, in 2010, Google added a feature which let you skip ads after 5 seconds. Everything that I bear, praise the Lord. Now, don't go thinking this was some benevolent act of altruism by Google. Not at all. Google were playing the long game. They knew that if they could bring the customers in and get them hooked enough that they don't want to stop watching YouTube, then they can ring them for all their fucking worth. And so, after this brief act of altruism, like frogs in a boiling jar, Google little by little turned up the heat. The first step in Google's plan was when they introduced mid-roll ads in 2012. These started off very limited, as creators didn't really adopt them because the viewers hated them, and at most there'd be one per video. Then, in 2015, the unskippable ads made their unfortunate return. At this point, any semblance of pretense about cultivating a positive experience for the user was completely lost. Then out of nowhere, in 2017, the adpocalypse struck. If you're not old enough to know what the adpocalypse is, or simply don't remember, it was a time when a lot of advertisers were pulling out of YouTube because their ads were being found on extremist or NSFW content. And in response, YouTube started firing that demonetization shotgun willy-nilly, with all sorts of creators getting caught in the crossfire for largely invalid reasons.
What do you say fuck me for?
Now then, you might think that that would actually improve the amount of ads you see, but unfortunately, that's not quite how things work. What actually ended up happening is because creators were earning so much less money, and whether or not they'd get advertising became very, very inconsistent, they just started putting mid-roll ads everywhere they could. Additionally, you'd get some YouTubers like Ricegum who would film a video that's only like 4 minutes long and then put 6 minutes of a blank screen at the end so we could extend it to the 10 minutes mark, so we could fill it to the brim with mid-roll ads. Now, you might blame some of this extra ads on the creators, and you might have some merit in that. However, when your income gets slashed in half because of something completely out of your control, it's quite valid to try and scavenge back some of the remains while you still have the chance, ignoring the few fringe cases. Now, the truly heinous thing that came from this is that demonetized videos can still show ads. Now, what does this mean? Does this mean that the creator still gets some money, just not as much? No. What it means is that the video still shows ads, the creators get nothing, and YouTube pockets everything. This also gives them free rein to control how many ads are on a demonetized video. And since the demonetization system became far more strict after the adpocalypse, you know what that means? Loads more ads. Then it gets even worse. In 2018, they added double ads.
I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
Then in 2019, the threshold for mid-roll ads went from 10 minutes to 8 minutes. This has the benefit of certain YouTubers not padding out their stuff as much, although these aren't exactly the YouTubers you might want to watch. However, you know what that also means? Loads more ads. Then in 2020, they stopped just having control over the demonetized videos, and they started putting automatic ad placement in every YouTuber's video. They did this on videos that had no manually placed mid-rolls, or had suboptimal placements. And so creators were given the option to let YouTube decide placements automatically or to manually control them, although this was heavily discouraged. And I feel like I don't need to tell you what YouTube being in charge does to the number of ads you see. Then in 2021, they started playing ads automatically at the end of the video, so if you're distracted or you can't find the remote, then you get munched. Then, in 2022, they aggressively optimized the automatic advertisement system to funnel even more ads down your throat. Then in 2023, they cracked down really hard on ad block, and also introduced banners that show up on the right hand side when you pause the video. Then in 2024, they optimised for TV screens by putting longer ads because they know people are less likely to click off than on a phone. Then in 2025, they updated the system to find natural breakpoints. However, these points seem rather prevalent. Quite a bit more so than prior, I might add. In response, I did a little bit of field research.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
I was watching some Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares with my friends, some fine boy slop to satisfy my immaculate tastes. So, this video was 46 minutes long, and over the span of that 46 minutes, I received an ad every 6 minutes. That is quite obscene. I'm sure my brethren across the pond are quite used to this. If you've ever watched the Super Bowl, it's more ad than sport. However, to my British sensibilities, this is far too much. As stated earlier, the legal maximum on British television is 7 minutes an hour. And if you account for the fact that each of these ads were at least 2 minutes long, that means that there were 16 minutes of ads per 46 minutes of content. That's even more than the American legal limit. YouTube used to be a land of respite from the extensive advertising of television. However, no more. It is now worse than television ever was, and will only continue to get worse, which moves us on to 2026. This is the worst one of all, and the reason I made this video. I'm sure some of you have noticed that little fucking banner that pops up in the bottom left corner after an ad finishes. You have to manually dismiss. Fucking piss take. This is one step away from a fucking Black Mirror episode. It's only a matter of time before we're living in some cyberpunk dystopia where the facial recognition technology in our computer can tell whether or not we're focusing on the ad. And at the end we have to describe the ad briefly and say how much we love our corporate overlords before we're allowed to continue watching our AI slop crime drama sponsored by Amazon. And as much as I am exaggerating, I am not overreacting. Imagine if when you're watching the telly, after an ad finished, it stuck around in the bottom left corner forever until you manually went up and pressed to get rid of it. And not only that, they make you press one button and then press another button to confirm, and they make the button so incredibly small that you accidentally press on the ads after time, sending you to their website. Oh, I really needed to get that off my chest. Now, in summary, what were once 5-second skippable ads at the start of the video have now turned into 2 minutes of unskippable double ads, which have been aggressively optimised to fill as much of the video as possible, which linger after they finish until you manually tell them to fuck off. This is just one example of how ads have been gradually shoved further and further down our throats for the past 20 years. Now this video was originally going to be quite a bit longer, and I was going to cover AI slop ads as well as targeted ads and the selling of data. Editing and recording this shit takes quite a while, especially because I'm quite new to this. So I might make another video talking about that, especially the targeted ads bit, because that shit gets really, really fucking tapped. However, just to hammer my point home about the increase of ads in the modern day, I'm going to bring up some other examples just before the video ends, because it's not just YouTube who've been creeping up trying to turn us into a good little cattle. Now the first one is Netflix. Now this is a sneaky one, because when you look at it at a surface level, it seems almost consumer friendly. In 2022, they introduced an ad tier, which is more than half of the original price. Hunky dory, you must be thinking, oh, that's brilliant, you know, fucking may as well, you know, get a few ads for a significantly cheaper subscription. Now, this stops looking so consumer friendly when you look at how they've changed the prices since Netflix launched in the UK. In 2012, when Netflix launched in the UK, it was £6. By the time the ad tier was introduced, it was £11. That's an 83% increase. Although at the time there was a lower tier for £7, although this was only 720p and only had one device. If Netflix had simply followed inflation from 2012 to 2022, it would have cost £7.60 by the release of the ad tier. That's only 26%, giving us a discrepancy of 56.7% between inflation and Netflix's price increase. So in fact, the shitty 720p tier is actually a closer match than inflation than the standard tier. So now you're starting to see that the deal isn't quite as good as you might have initially thought. Although if you work backwards, it's still a good £3.60 cheaper than the price would have been if Netflix had just tracked inflation. And also, you might think, what's the harm in it? You know, it's just another option. Why not have the option for it to be cheaper but you get ads? And at the time, I would have agreed with you. More options for the consumer is definitely better. However, the issue arises when Netflix starts to funnel you down into the options they want you to pick. Because just as with YouTube, these companies always start off slow and then gradually build their way towards the outcome they want. The first of these changes happened in 2024 when Netflix got rid of the lower tier. Why do this? Because they want you watching the ad tier. Why do they want you watching the ad tier? Because it gets them more money. Now where it gets worse is when we compare the price of the standard tier, now the only option, from 2022 to the modern day. Netflix now costs £13 for the standard tier, and when you do the maths again, that means the price has increased by more than double. This, again, is a faster increase than inflation. Now if we calculate the price discrepancy again, we can see it's gone up to 70%. What this means is that the gap between inflation and the price of Netflix is getting wider. Netflix's prices are still increasing at a faster rate than inflation. Why? So they can funnel you down into the ad tier. Now then, why would they want to funnel us down into the cheaper ad tier? Do they just want us to have a better deal? Do they want us spending less money? I reckon the answer's pretty obvious. Netflix earns more money from the customers who pay for the ad tier than the ones who pay for the premium one, because they can show them ads. And so I'm going to make a prediction. I reckon in the next few years, Netflix is going to rename the ad tier to the standard tier, and then the tier without ads will be renamed something like Netflix Plus. This now rebranded ad-free tier will progressively become more and more expensive until everyone's using the ad tier. Why? Because it gets them more money. Also, deep this cuckold of an article by Forbes which I found while researching. This guy's wife must get railed on the regs, and he's just in the next room with a glass to the fucking wall, just like rating it, just like in his little gym suit, not even allowed in the room. Maybe if he's lucky he gets allowed in the cupboard, like. Now, the final one that takes the piss is Now TV. About 3 years back, I was travelling for an extended period of time, and I wanted to rewatch Game of Thrones. So I looked online to check where you could watch it, and at least at the time, the only place I could watch it was Now TV. I think that might have changed these days, but that doesn't really matter. So I go on their website, ready to buy just a month's subscription so I could rewatch one of my favourite shows. And to my horror, the options that I were given were horrendous. Firstly, there were 4 different options. Now, these weren't even the tiers. These were just the options of the things you were allowed to watch. There was an option for films, telly, sports, and documentaries. So unlike most other streaming services, if I had paid for the TV package, then if I'd wanted to maybe watch some David Attenborough on the side, sorry mate, you gotta pay more. Now, it gets worse, because for each of these individual packages, the standard package includes ads. Now, these corporations are very careful with how they label these things, because when they call the one with ads the standard package, you don't feel like you're getting ripped off, when in reality, what you're getting is the light package, and you have to pay extra for the standard package. They make it seem as if not having ads is some kind of privilege which you have to pay extra for, when back in the day, that was the standard. Now here's the kicker. On each of these individual packages, where you have to pay extra to not have ads, there's a minimum subscription time of 6 months. That is taking the piss. So fuck you Now TV, I'm just gonna pirate. Now, hopefully you've gotten a small taste of how companies are trying to shove ads as far down our throats as they physically can. You can see the clear timeline of how YouTube have taken the piss with their ad increases, as well as how streaming services have progressively price gouged their other options to force you down into the ad hole, as well as how meticulous companies are with their wording to make you feel as though these options are not a piss take. And just to finish this off, I'm going to point out the fact that this is only going to get worse. By the nature of a corporation, their goal is constant growth. And how do they achieve that? By upping the ante every time. Their whole existence is based around getting more. And what that means is that companies whose profits rely on advertising will continuously try to implement more and more.